Shabbat Shalom. So actually, before I begin my Drasha, I want to tell. No, but I want to tell a story about this tie. And if I had probably more coffee, I could probably figure out a way to connect the tie to the Drasha. And if somebody comes up with that connection afterwards, I'll figure out a prize. But I saw that we're trying to gather items for a silent auction. So in 96 and 97, which was the year I spent at a monastery in Northern California, I also went to Reno, Nevada every other weekend to be their very part-time interim rabbi. And one of the weekends that I was there, the shul was having a fundraising auction, and there was a live auction, but there was also a silent auction. And there was this tie, and this tie really caught my eye. So I bid on it, and then this other guy would bid on it, and then we went back and forth at raising the price several times. Okay, and finally the guy who I was in a bidding war with comes up to me and he says to me, "Rabbi, look, I'm a lawyer, okay? I make a lot more money than you do, and you keep raising the price, and it's costing me a lot of money, so let's make a deal. I will raise the price, you stop bidding, and I will give you the tie." Okay, so Alan, you're warned. When Kelly and I lived in Connecticut, we went twice in the summer to Quebec. And we went to Montreal one time, but we went to Quebec City twice. And Quebec City is one of our favorite places. And one of the slogans that they use to promote their tourism is the France you can drive to. Okay, I don't know how many of you have been to Quebec City or the environment, but unlike Montreal, which is bilingual, Quebec is French. Okay, and at the time I was a member of the Rotary Club in Norwich, Connecticut, and so Rotary, you have to, if you miss meetings, you get fined. But you can do a makeup. If you're traveling, you can go to another Rotary. So I went to the Quebec Rotary, and one of the guys who was a banker took me under his wing, and he was quite fluent in English with, barely an accent, but the meeting was in French. And he asked me, and he says, "Are you surprised to find that we speak French?" And I said that I wasn't per se surprised, but it's interesting and kind of admirable that they've maintained their own distinct culture and not been swamped both by their Anglophone Canadian neighbors who way, way outnumber them, and of course, the English-speaking colossus to their south. And he said that they maintain their French culture because of both isolation and stubbornness. But he said that his kids' generation are even more integrated into the Anglophone world, right? Because of the internet, TV, pop music, and so on. And to survive economically, you have to function in the global economy, and that means English, right? And he had real doubts about whether the distinct French Québécois culture would survive that integration or not. Okay, I personally, I think it will, but who knows? So we just said the prayer for the new month, and Rabbi Harold Kushner points out that in this prayer, we ask God for a lot of things, right? But one of the things we ask for is Yirat Shamayim, which I mean, if you translate it literally, it means fear of God, but really, let's say reverence. Sorry, fear of heaven. But let's say reverence for God. But the thing is, of that whole list of things that we're asking for, we ask God for Yirat Shamayim twice, right? Look back, not now, but look back and you'll see that we actually ask for God Yirat Shamayim twice. And Rabbi Kushner explains that between the first request for Yirat Shamayim and the second, we ask for Osher v'chavod, wealth and honor. Rabbi Kushner says it's actually easier to have reverence for God when you are poor than when you're rich, right? And if you go, I mean, you can see this certainly in the African American community, right? I mean, the poorer the congregation, the more fervent the worship, right? And this is the history of Judaism too. I mean, when did reform, by which I don't mean the reform movement per se, but the idea that there should be some English in the service and there should be sermons and there should, like, everybody should be on the same page at the same time, right? When did that start? It started when Jews became integrated into general culture, right? The quest for respectability, right? And you can't bring your non-Jewish partner to some shtiebel in a basement, right? You have to, and it's the same thing. I mean, this quest for respectability. I mean, I read some kosher restaurant groups on Facebook, right? And one of the questions that is often asked is, where is a restaurant in such and such a city that I can bring my non-Jewish clients to, right? Now, well, because because 90% of kosher restaurants, right, are put it this way, dirt is kosher, right? And the service is, right? And there aren't too many places where you could really bring a non-Jewish client or a non-Jewish partner and not be embarrassed, right? That is the quest for respectability, right? And this is laid out by Moses in this week's Parsha as well, right? Moses says, observe the commandments of Hashem, your God, walk in his ways, revere him. The Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, etc., etc. But then the warning, be careful that you do not forget the Lord your God, failing to observe his commands, his laws, and his decrees that I am giving you this day. Otherwise, when you eat and are satisfied, when you build fine houses and settle down, and when your herds and flocks grow large, and your silver and gold increase, and all you have is multiplied, your heart will become proud. You will forget the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me. But remember that it is Hashem, your God, who gives you the ability to produce wealth, right? My power and the strength of my hands got me all this wealth, right? That is the biblical definition of idolatry, right? We think that we're not idolaters because we don't bow down to statues, right? Just like, I heard a candidate say, people think they're not racist because they don't wear hoods, but if we say that everything that I have because I deserve it, rather than it being a trust from God, that is an idolater, right? And the fact of the matter is, and I still maintain this is the case, right? I mean, certainly there has been a rise in anti-Semitism in the last few years, right? We never used to lock our doors, and we've gotten literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants to put in security stuff, right? And there is the alt-right phenomenon and so on and so forth, right? But I still maintain that the main challenge to American Judaism is affluence and integration, right? I have never had a parent say to me, Johnny can't go to Hebrew school because I'm afraid that it'll be attacked by anti-Semites, right? But any rabbi will tell you, or any religious school principal will tell you, that what keeps our kids out of Hebrew school? Soccer practice, Little League, ballet, gymnastics, horse riding, tennis lessons, right? And these are all things that cost a lot of money, right? And I remember one time, you know, when I was in Norwich, this family quit the shul because they can't afford their dues, right? And of course that's ridiculous because we'll always make it right, but they had a boat sitting in front of their house, right? There was no HOA. If you can afford a boat, you can afford $100 a month for shul dues, right? It's a question of priority, right? But even when kids go to Hebrew school, teachers vie for their students' attention with what? Cell phones, Game Boys, etc., right? And, you know, as much as, look, I get emails every day asking me to send money to this organization or that organization to combat anti-Semitism on the college campus. But at the same time, I see Jewish parents, and not people with marginal Jewish identities, and their kids are going to places that I would never have dreamed of. Okay, for example, I saw the other day a young woman, she's not so young anymore, a woman who was very involved in Hillel when I was the Hillel director at AU, and she has twin daughters. They're going to the University of Alabama. Okay, I'm sorry, but if fear of anti-Semitism is your main concern, you ain't sending your daughters to the University of Alabama, right? I mean, Jewish kids go everywhere, places that, you know, we would never have dreamed of going, or those of us with college or post-college kids would never have dreamed of allowing our kids to go, right? So maybe anti-Semitism isn't quite the threat that we think it is, right? But Moses says that it's not affluence which is the problem, right? Moses says, he points out the bounty, and he says, enjoy it all, right? Enjoy it all, but remember that we were slaves in Egypt, right? And we must love and be faithful to our neighbors who are strangers, because we were strangers in Egypt. We must remember that God is the source of our bounty and give thanks to God, and of course, share what we have with those who are less fortunate, right? And here, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, extremely articulate. When we forget God, we begin to lose our humanity. Attempting to be more than merely human, we become less. The result is idolatry of the nation, the state, the race, the class, the system, the party, or the tyrant. Okay, Rabbi Sachs wrote this years ago, but it's just incredible to me that we have people who wrap themselves in the cloak of religion, right? You all know who I'm talking about. People who wrap themselves in the cloak of religion, and the result, I'm going to repeat Sax's words, the result is idolatry of the nation, the state, the race, the class, the system, the party, or the tyrant. Idolatry never dies. It returns always in a new guise and always demanding human sacrifice. The prelude to disaster is the thought, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me. Prophetic words that is describing, the dilemma that we're facing in this country right now, that kind of idolatry. And the people go, we don't create statues, we're not idols, right? But that is exactly the kind of idolatry that the Torah warns against. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Yashikala.
So we continue with Kehilat Shalom, page 181 in the Shabbat Siddur, 506. Oh, I'm sorry, Musa. What am I talking about? Chati.